In this video, we're going to work on using question banks. The information in this video are appropriate for creating question banks for use in quizzes, regardless of the type of quiz or the way you intend on using the quiz. My examples are going to focus on creating quizzes for formative assessment, in which the purpose of the quiz is for students to drill themselves or otherwise attempt to learn material. So the question bank itself is what it sounds like. It is a collection of quiz questions. Any quiz that is created automatically creates a question bank with the name of that quiz as the name of this set of questions that live in the question bank. In addition to that, you can create a set of questions without having created a quiz at all, and then you save them for use in another quiz of some sort. In addition to that, you can import in quiz questions into a question bank if you have quizzes or question banks in another format. So what we're going to do today is, in this video, is I'm going to show you the question bank. We're going to do an import, and we're also going to look at how you navigate between sets of questions that live inside the question bank. So first of all, there are two ways to get to the question bank. One is you're already inside of a quiz. There's the question bank option right there. The other is when you are in the course itself, the question bank is right there. So it all just kind of depends on where you're at, which direction you're going to go. I'm going to click on question bank, and here I can look at all the questions that live in a question bank. Right now I only have one for this course because I created that one question in that one quiz. So that's all I really have there. There's actually, oddly enough, there's a couple of other questions that live here, and it's basically because at one point I accidentally placed some quiz questions at the system level. It's generally best not to do that because you don't want your questions accessible or to be changed by any other user of our Moodle system. You instead want them to be controlled just by you. All right, so with very little to choose from here already, I would need to create some new questions for that. I can either just start building some new questions, create a new question, and make some new things. And I'm just going to do a really quick true-false here. Maybe this is question bank 1, question 1. Text. This is going to be a true, false, some general feedback. The correct answer is false. Feedback if they responded true, feedback if they responded false. Am I going to let them do it multiple times? Right now, because the reason this is different from when we create quizzes, questions inside of a quiz, is because this is not associated with any quiz, so it doesn't really know what's going on yet. We're just going to roll with that. We're just going to click Save Changes, and there I've created my new question bank quiz. So that's one option, is just sit there inside the question bank and start making them. You might say, why would I want to use a question bank at all? The primary use for a question bank is if you'd like to create a quiz that randomly draws a smaller number of questions from a larger set. And this is a very useful feature when you are having students drill themselves or take quizzes multiple times in order to better learn the material. All right, so if I wanted to import one, maybe it is one that I have exported out of some other Moodle site altogether, or maybe I have a textbook test bank that is in a format that I can use here. Not all textbook question banks can be imported. It can be a little tricky. What I find is that in general, if you have a textbook that provides you with question banks, the Moodle format often does not work well as an import method, which means you might think, well, what am I going to do now? Because my textbook has it in a bunch of formats, but the Moodle one doesn't work. Well, choose one of the other formats. The importing in a Blackboard formatted quiz bank, question bank, usually works fairly well. And I'm going to show you an example of that right now. So let's say I want to bring in, I have a test bank that came with my textbook, and I want to bring in, and I downloaded the folder full of these things, and it's in Blackboard format. I want to bring that in. I choose it, I go find it, browse. I actually here have this. So I'm going to bring this one in. Open, upload this file. This process works the same regardless of what you're bringing in. It's just that I happen to have some Blackboard quizzes. Canvas uses something that's a little odd. It's called the QTI format. May or may not work easily if you have Canvas ones. Aiken, Close, Gift are all text files that you have written up or have gotten from somewhere that use a coding structure similar to something like HTML to create the questions. All right, I'm just going to say import. And there, brought them all in, easy as pie. So these questions now, I now have if I come back here to the questions in my question bank, I have a new set that I can pull from. This set that I brought in was called Chapter 16, and there are 32 questions in it that I can choose from. So if I click on that, there now I have all these. And when I go later to create a quiz, I could just choose some and say, I want this question, this question, this question. Or I could go into my quiz and use the random quiz creation option to randomly choose from those. So this is basically how the quiz banks work. These tabs across the top correspond to these. You can navigate either way. Categories. This labeling and categorization of items in the question bank is really just weird, and I tend to kind of leave this alone because it gets weird. But it does give you the opportunity to fully delete an entire something that you've brought in if you wanted to. I could move these around or rename them or some other things like that, but the main reason why you would want to come into categories really is just to delete something you didn't need. We already looked at import, and export just allows us to choose a way to export out a set of quiz questions and then open them up somewhere else. So in this case, we would, if you wanted to share with someone else at another institution who had Moodle, you could do that, or you could do the Aiken or the Gift format. It's also an easier way to, you've got one, let's say you've got a course that, well, actually, let me take that back. The easiest way to get a quiz from one course site to another is to just use the basic import tool inside of Moodle, and that's what you would totally do. Then that quizzes come over, which automatically puts those questions inside the question bank. But it is also possible to just do an export into Moodle XML format in one course and then import in another. I think it probably takes about the same amount of time. So that is a question bank. As a quick reminder of how we work inside of quizzes, we're going to come back in here and we're going to come to Edit Quiz, and I'm going to show you how to bring question bank questions into here. We go to Add, and depending on what we're wanting to do, we can either select them directly from the question bank or we can do a random question. So to select directly, I do that, and it's like, well, which category do you want to pull from? And I'm going to say I want to pull from Chapter 16, and which ones do I want? Maybe I want this one and that one. If I want all of them, I can check that box right there. And then I add selected questions to the quiz. Yay, my quiz now has all of these. And then meanwhile, I want a fourth question that's just a random one. So I go random question from where? I'm going to go with that one. And I only want one random question, although I could. There's 32 questions there. Let's say I wanted them to drill themselves with 10 questions at a time. I could change that to 10. This is just going to be 1. All right, so now I have a random one from Chapter 16. If I need to look at all the questions again to remind myself what the options might be, I can do that. So this quiz is now done. I can preview this quiz. So I've got the question I created manually here within the quiz. I have 2 questions that I pulled from a question bank specifically, and then this one is a random one. Should I preview again, I believe, when I preview again, it'll open up a new question there. All right, so that is using a question bank for quizzes.